Hi, everybody, and welcome back to On the DL. We are going to start today with a quote because it's really the only way how I know and how I feel like I want to get into this conversation right away. So here's the quote. I didn't make it up. It's from our guest, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. Here we go. Clutter around your home is just unmade decisions. We can all just sit with that for one moment, pause, think about that. How does that resonate, if at all? Megan Golightly, welcome to On the DL.
I am taking some deep breaths because I know that I have things around my house too, but yeah, that's very true. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Megan is the owner and can I say creator of Simplified? Is that true? Yes. And can you tell everybody what is Simplified?
Well, Simplified, is a business that I've been doing for over 12 years, where really my goal is to help people get out from clutter and simplify their lives, and end those I should when it comes to their homes.
Right, because we all have that probably daily after the last couple of years. We've all been like literally looking at every corner of our home and looking at what has been built up in every corner of our home and how much we want to simplify now going forward. But it's so much, it's so much deeper than just pulling out a drawer and taking out your old lipsticks and old socks. And we know that, but it feels like such a huge, almost paralyzing task to simplify your home. So that's where you come in. And we're going to talk about that today because this is a huge topic right now. Our homes have been our sanctuaries, and more so than ever before, we want to leave our home, but as we're leaving our home and we're starting to navigate the outside world again, there's something about walking out the door and knowing that what's inside feels right and feels good. And a lot of people are saying it doesn't feel so good inside right now.
Right. So and some people actually don't want to come back to their homes for that reason. And that's why they spend a lot of time shopping or doing other things, is because they just don't feel comfortable in their homes and have a lot of guilt around what's in their homes. So go ahead.
A distraction. Huge distractions.
Exactly. Right. And what you said earlier in the introduction of how it can be psychologically paralyzing or just paralyzing is that it really is paralyzing in that when there is so much background noise of clutter around us, our prefrontal cortex, that brain, the parent part of the brain that's looking after that little amygdala in there, isn't there to make those decisions. It goes offline. And so you almost become childlike, where you get paralyzed and you can't make decisions because anxiety is in the way. So it's more than just you not wanting to do it. There is some neuroscience behind what's happening when people feel that paralysis, but you can get through it with awareness.
And it's true. You talk about this, it's more than just putting sticky notes and labels on things. Right. So yeah, much more than that. So I just want to read out a bit of your bio because it's super impressive. Megan is not just a hyper-focused, organized business owner. You also have a degree in psychology. So you actually know what you're talking about here when you started talking about neuroscience. You study neuroscience and you have studied it, and that piqued your curiosity on how the brain works in relation to the spaces in our homes. Megan has said it's unhealthy to have nagging, critical thoughts about the states of our homes, whether or not we believe these words our subconscious mind does.
Right. So I see it all the time where I'm walking through someone's home with them, because I do work with clients still every day, 5 days a week. We have a team and we're very hands-on. So the Instagram and everything is just on the side. The important thing is that we're in there helping people. And I tour people's homes and I often see them sigh. And sighing, they always sigh. And sighing is your body offloading carbon dioxide. It's because you need to get rid of that carbon dioxide. So people often sigh without even knowing, because they're in a stress situation. And I see it when they show me their homes, they sigh. And, there's lots of exercises you can do double inhale, exhale to get over that anxiety. But people also look at, women, largely women, but I work with some men too, but a lot of moms that are working or with their kids open a cupboard and I hear them say, oh my God, I'm a mess. I'm terrible. I'm a disaster. I'm so embarrassed. This is my dirty little secret. All of those things. And I have those thoughts too. We all have those thoughts, but our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. So if we see that every day and say that every day, which we do every day when we make our coffee or get our cereal, you start to believe it. Mm-hmm. So I try to help people change that script and realize that it's okay and that there is help, but also then physically help them by changing the patterns and the systems, and we call them towns in their home, creating systems so that they can get upstream and they're not just constantly downstream trying to stay afloat.
Okay, so before we get into the how-tos, because I know everyone listening to this will say, well, how do I do this? Where do I begin? And I know that you are out in Alberta.
Calgary, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Ontario. I'm in Toronto. I know there's loads of businesses all over North America that do this, but it's really great to give people sort of that first step, get a taste of what it is they're longing for right now. We will get into that. I do want to talk more about the idea of how debilitating this is and the psychology behind the clutter. Like, right. What are the 7 reasons that people, I mean, I know you've talked about 7 solid reasons why people let that clutter just build and build and build to a point where it's everywhere. It's every drawer, it's every closet, it's in every room.
Right. And we are by nature hunters and gatherers, right? That's what we do. We see something sometimes even on the side of the road and we think, oh, that could be useful, or we try to make uses for things, right? And
that makes me insane if I can't, someone else's garbage is another one's treasure, something like that.
Sometimes if somebody gave you a retinol cream or some kind of beauty product or some awesome frames, Tom Ford frames, and you thought, oh, I can repurpose this. A lot of people would try to say, well, that's got some value, so I'm going to try to use it. And that's great if you don't have those things, but you can't just take on things for the sake of taking on things. And so there are a lot of reasons why we have a hard time letting go. And the first is because we are hunters and gatherers by nature, but we don't live in the wild anymore. And we have a responsibility to our families and to the people around us to maintain some order in our homes. And I'm not talking about perfection. I'm just talking about progress. Just leads me to one quick other thing is that we have to clean our homes. They get messy again, but we have to clean our homes. So organizing or decluttering, we owe it to ourselves to do that, even though sometimes it comes back, right? We can't just say it's going to fail, therefore I'm not doing it. That's like saying my body is going to get dirty in 2 days, therefore I'm not going to shower because it won't stay. But decluttering has to come before organizing, and decluttering has to happen in our homes because we're bringing stuff in, so stuff has to go out.
Right. So what are the 7 reasons why we, so why do we hold on to stuff? Why do we let that clutter build? Is it a lack of time? Is it because it's not fun?
Those are reasons. I think one of the main ones that I see is that a lot of women, because what we see on the internet and what we're surrounded by, are perfectionists. And so because of the fear that we're going to do it wrong, we choose to do nothing at all. And I even do this. I ripped apart my pantry last week and I was thinking, I want the perfect container. Well, I have a warehouse of the perfect containers attached to my house, yet I still kind of didn't want to do it because I didn't want to not have it perfect because people come into my home and see it, right? So you have to be conscious that it's progress, not perfection, and you have to start. So, that's one thing is perfectionism. Does that resonate?
It resonates so much. I mean, either it can be debilitating for some people or it can be super inspirational. So when I landed on your Instagram page, I went to town. I went to town. I told you that I heard you speak, and I was listening to you on a walk, and I could not wait to get home, which speaks
Oh,
volumes because I love my walking. And I was like, I gotta get home. I gotta get home. I've got to tend to this one drawer in my bathroom that literally wakes me up at night.
right.
Wakes me up at night. And I spent 2 hours on this drawer. Now, going through your entire page and a series of information that you provide, I realized that probably wasn't the right first step, but it did make me feel a little bit better. And it inspired me to go at the things that aren't so pretty, like a medicine cabinet, a drawer in the kitchen, not so much my closet, which I want to sing to me when I open the door in the morning,
Yeah.
as most women. And that's where the perfection starts: the front hall, the front closet, your own personal closet, the clutter on the counter. That's very de-stressing, right? Like you get that all done and you feel so much better.
Right.
But
And yeah, and there's more reasons, but there's just so much to it. You hit on so many things when you were speaking there of um, people often want to, and I'll get back to the 7 reasons, but I
yeah,
want
of
to get
course.
back to what you said is that often the clutter that we see too is because there aren't systems in place. So everything, when people do have clutter, the clutter that they see are usually the things that they use a lot, but when they go to put it away, because the second layer is still there in the cupboards and the drawers of the things that they don't really use, they can't put the things they do use away.
Hmm.
So when I recommend, and when we start, it always starts with decluttering the drawers, the cupboards, the storage areas, so that we can get that stuff out in order for the stuff that's laying out to have a new home.
Okay, that
Um,
makes sense.
right. And often the hardest barrier to overcome is you're standing in your own way. We want
Right.
to be organized, but we don't want to let go of those things. And so that's one of those perfectionist things. And sometimes it's just awareness of, if I'm aware of these 7 things, then maybe I can process them as I'm trying to get rid of things. So perfectionism, it's
Okay.
progress, it's not perfection. Some people, a lot of people, including myself, we've just made bad decisions, right? And I bought a little thing from Staples, impulse buy, from my phone and my watch to hook up on. It doesn't really work for my watch for some reason, but I said, well, I paid $25 for it. Sometimes we make bad decisions and we hang on to it rather than dealing with a bit of the shame of, well, that was just a bad decision. I should let it go. We don't need to keep it for that reason.
Right. That's a good one. That's huge. Actually, I
Um,
could think of 100 things right now. But like just went, I can think of all the items everywhere in the house. That was a bad decision. Yes.
yeah, and sometimes then the next one kind of comes hand in hand with that is we're kind and we don't know what to do with it. We want it to get it to the right home. So then we
Don't
hang
want to
on
throw it
to it
away.
because I want to give this to my church, or I want to give this to my nanny
Yes.
or my cousin the next time she comes, but she comes every 16 years, right? So we hang on to it. But we take things out of homes right away and donate it to Mamas for Mamas or to
Well, that's
Goodwill,
nice.
or we get it out because the thing that you're hanging on to for that $25, your self-worth is more worth it's more valuable than that $25 thing that might be able to be only returned for 10 now, or after
Hmm.
10 years is only worth $2. So I ask my clients and people to think about what's more important, your self-worth and your happiness, or that $5 thing times 1,000 that are in your house.
I have to say too that during our numerous lockdowns, this happened to me. I had called various organizations to donate clothing, and they weren't taking anything. So I had bags, garbage bags filled with clothes,
Right.
children's clothes, women's clothes, men's clothes, and nobody would take it. And when I finally was able to distribute and get rid of it, it felt so good. But
Right.
it was in my house for a very long time,
Yeah.
too
And
long.
yeah, getting those systems in place sometimes is helpful too. So having
Yes.
that bin and knowing where it is, and it is labeled Goodwill. And
Yeah.
every month on every fourth Sunday, you take it to Goodwill or have
Mm.
someone pick it up. But the system has to be there, or there again, like we were talking about, that place for it to go to doesn't exist. So then your brain doesn't really know what to do. And
Hmm.
our brains, you said earlier too, when you were doing your drawer, it kept you up at night. And
Hmm.
that's something called duration path outcome. Our brains are always trying to predict what's going to happen. So when you see that clutter, your brain is trying to predict, how am I going to manage this? Where's it going to go? And when am I going to get to it? Now, even if you're not consciously thinking about that, your brain is trying to solve it in the background, taking up valuable time for other decision things. And then you get to decision fatigue. So
Oh.
that's why it's sometimes good to get after those piles, whether you think they're bothering you or not. Your brain is trying to solve it. And that's what insomnia is. That's what your brain was trying to do at night, was figure it out.
What do you hear, or what's the most common theme when you walk into someone's home for the first time? Is it the embarrassment?
I think because they've called me, that's gone, right? The poor
Mm.
people who don't make the call are those who, unfortunately, when we get there and start working, they say, why didn't we do this sooner? Why didn't I do
Mm.
this sooner? Because something that's been bugging you for 10 years, or something that's been sitting on your table for 2, which it happens, can be gone in one day. Or a storage room, a garage, we can fix it in a day. And hopefully teach clients and people that it's like owning a car. If you don't understand how the car works, your car is going to break down. So with this, if we don't understand the science behind, or the neuroscience behind why we're not doing it, and what's involved in it, then often we fail before we start, because that adrenaline builds and we quit, right? There's too much adrenaline in our bodies and the quit response happens. So
I had an aha moment the other day in preparation for our interview. I've been walking around my house and looking at things and thinking so many things that I wanted to talk to you about, but I actually had an aha moment. And my mother-in-law was over and she pulled out this, I guess it's an espresso cup. I hadn't seen it. I actually haven't seen this in years, and it was up on a shelf. But I looked at it and I thought, what is that? And why is that in my house? And I said it, and she was like, "Oh, it's Kevin's. That's my husband's. He must have brought it." So um, we are both each other's second marriage, and he moved into my home. And when he moved into my home, he brought a lot of stuff. And at the
right,
beginning, I wanted him to feel like this is his home, and if those espresso cups made him feel great, put them on the shelf, leave it. Like he, I just wanted him to have that feeling that you are home now. This
right,
is our big blended house, and just happens to be, it was my house first, but I wanted him to feel really good about it. So I let him bring stuff. But there has been layers of clutter over the years. And I keep thinking, I think it's okay. I think he feels okay now. Like I can get rid of some of that stuff. I
right.
think that that is okay. And in fact, not only will he not even notice, um, I'll feel better about it. But there's always something behind. There's always a feeling. There's always an emotion to
Right.
why that stuff is there. And for
Yeah.
me, I'm going to go through all of his stuff that really he doesn't use and we don't need in the house.
Yeah, the sentimental piece is big for a lot of people. And I remind people that whether, I mean, there's a couple of things here. If it was a gift from your mother and you're keeping all of these things in
Right.
your kitchen, you're keeping her measuring cups and you're keeping everything of your mother's, and it's causing a problem for you every day in your family, your mother wouldn't want that burden for you.
Hmm.
So it's then being brave and saying, this isn't working for me, this isn't serving me. And either stopping that stuff from coming in from the in-laws and from your parents, or knowing that the memory of your mother, if she's gone, is not going to leave with the grater or with the wooden spoon. Take a picture, or honor her in a different way by having a picture of her than in your kitchen or something. But those items aren't necessarily, the physical items aren't necessary. And I know that's really hard for people.
I know that's really hard for people. And I think also another theme, parents love to bring over their stuff to their
Right.
children's first home, or when they've had their babies and they're home now. And, you know, I remember being on maternity leave and my mother kept bringing stuff over to my house as if I needed that. I'm looking after a newborn. I don't need any more plates or bowls but,
Right.
you know, she was offloading all this stuff in my house, and I did eventually get rid of it because it made me feel better. But she's alive, thank goodness. So I can get rid of a lot of the stuff that she continually brought over to my house. And I think a lot of people have that, where their
Right.
parents bring their stuff over, and it's very hard to say, Mom, I don't want that. Or to
Right.
tell your mother-in-law, I don't want that plate. I'm good.
But you have to be
You
brave
do.
and you have to
Oh,
send that message. And you know, you have, if you explain it in the right way, to say that you're trying to live a simpler life that isn't burdened down, and that you may live a different life than they did, and we don't need to keep, as you know, there's different generations here too, of, you know, younger generations that I work with, they don't want things. And um, you're not being better parents by showing your children that excess is good necessarily, nor are you, you know, are those things making you a better parent. There's a lot of people who define themselves as, let's just say, I'm a runner. And so therefore, if I have a lot of water bottles and tank tops and all this stuff, I am, it's my identity. So it's supporting that I am a runner. But if you take those things away and keep 3 water bottles instead of 25, you're still a runner, right? So people's identity is often attached to their things. And if you look at it differently and twist it, you know, you're not going to not be a good cook if you get rid of half of your cookbooks. It's
oh
okay,
my God.
right?
You're speaking my language nonstop. First of all, how many water bottles does a family actually need, right? You don't need a water bottle from when your kid was their first summer at soccer camp and they had,
Right.
you don't need that water bottle, throw it out, right?
Right.
Um, and yeah, I'm like thinking already, I want to go upstairs and pull that out, but we're going to get to the how to's in a second. What do you advise people when one person wants to get rid of things and another doesn't?
Well, I mean, that's a tricky one too. It's a lot of those reasons why we hang on to things. And again, to me, it comes down to awareness, and you have to be somewhat on the same page in a family and have family meetings about it, in that as much stuff that comes in has to go out. And again, it's about being brave and not getting in your own way or your partner's way to what's going to make them happy. Now, people's styles can be very different in homes, but that has to be communicated or it becomes resentment. And, you know, people can help, as I was saying before, you don't have to necessarily keep a home like your parents did. If they kept
Mm,
everything just in case, you have to take a hard look at yourself and realize, I am not my parents, and that's not how I want to operate my home. So
exactly.
I don't need to keep all those things just in case. But it's tricky if your parents were raised, you know, in a time where they
Mhm.
had to fight for everything and had nothing. That's often the clients that I see that hang on to everything just in case.
I want to read another quote that you wrote. You've written so much. We're going to talk about your Instagram page in a sec too, and your website, because it's actually, I feel like it's been life changing for me. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
I'm serious. I know that people, I want people to go to it to see what I'm speaking about. But
it is
this
more
is,
than organizing, isn't it? It's
it
just
is so much more than organizing, and it resonates on so many levels. And I've had time to really think about what you're talking about, and I think about the various stages of my life, particularly my adult life, and it makes complete sense to me what you're saying. Complete sense. And this is what I when I read this is huge. Okay. The first step to getting what you want is to
mhm,
have the courage to get rid of what you don't want.
Right. It is huge. I had a long conversation with my cousin today because I'm going to Victoria to help her. I don't travel for clients, but I am going there anyway. So I'm going to help her. But she said to me, "What can I do before you come?" And I said, "Nothing, nothing. Don't do anything except maybe journal and write down why you deserve this and why you're doing this, so that when I do come, and Jackie and I are going together in the middle of May, is so that you don't get in your own way that day, because you deserve this to be happening, and you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to have the home that you want, and you deserve your family to be happy." So you know, that's
How do
all.
you do that though? Where do you find the courage to literally get rid of what you don't want so you can have the things you do want?
It's a leap of faith. It's a total leap of faith, but I can tell you that nobody regrets it. Even if you get rid of that light raincoat that you may need if you go to London one day, let's say you get rid of it. I always say to clients, well, what's the worst thing that can happen because of this? Well, I won't have the raincoat. Well, then what's the worst thing that will happen about that? Well, I might need to get another one. Well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen about you needing to get another one? Well, I'll have to go shopping. And we go down that path, and often it'll uncover sort of the core belief of what's stopping them from getting rid of it in the first place. And sometimes it comes to, well, I don't feel good about myself when I'm not prepared.
Right.
Okay, well, let's talk about really about you not feeling good about yourself.
Right.
What makes you feel good about yourself? Let's talk about
Right.
10 things about why you are good. And then they'll realize that it's not really about the coat, it's about something else. So the coat can go. But the more you get rid of, and I'm not saying minimalist, I'm not like, well, I do like minimalism, but not everybody is capable of that. But once you start to shed things off, cleaning is easier, tidying is easier, having people over is easy. It opens up all of these things. You spend more time with your kids. You can find that game that you want that's actually age appropriate, right? But it takes time. You need to go through every area and feel the fear and do it anyway. Right?
Megan, I read that and I thought to myself, two things came up. So in sort of the spirit of vanity, I thought, okay, I have a closet that would probably make you panic. It's organized, it's color coded, it's super, super, super organized, but you would come in and probably think this is an excess. Like, why do you need all this? Most people walk in and say, I don't know why you need 25 black long sleeve dresses. Like, you don't need that. Maybe you need two. So it's an excess. So I know that I need to go and get rid of a ton of stuff to make space and room, like psychological space in my brain to bring in the wardrobe I really want, because I'm not buying stuff or I'm not creating it. And that becomes layered for people. Then it becomes, well, if I can't get the wardrobe I want, then maybe I'm not going to go after the body I want. So I don't have the health that I want. I'm not eating like, it's so layered.
It is.
Everything. It's so layered. So that made me think of the first thing was my closet. I know people listening to this who know me know my closet are going to say, you're so bananas. Your closet is so organized, but that's what it did for me when I read that quote. And the second I thought of my life 15 years ago. So I was not in a good place. I've talked about this very openly on the DL because we talk about things here that we don't say naturally out loud. This is a safe space for people. And I've talked about my divorce, and it wasn't a good time for me. It was very difficult, very chaotic and crisis mode. But when my first husband left, I was so elated that I went through room by room with a box and bags and started just taking everything out and putting all that noise and chaos and crisis away.
Not gone.
And I made room, literally made that physical room, which made room in my brain and in my heart. And voila, love of my life showed up. And there's a beautiful space for him to move into. And like, I'm just saying, I know it might sound hokey to some people, but I swear that's how I feel.
Right.
And
And
it
it's
makes
energy too.
sense.
Yeah, it
Right.
is. I mean, things are energy and they affect you. So
Yes.
that's
So if people are
exactly,
thinking that right now they're in a bad spot, there's something happening, it would you suggest go look around your house and see what's holding you back?
yeah. And I would say for those people, because I've been in that situation too, everybody's,
Yes.
you know, everybody, I call it a swear town. I don't know if I can swear on here, but
Oh,
everybody's
you can say whatever you want. It's on the
okay.
DL. We talk about crazy shit
Okay.
here.
It's
Yeah.
shit town, right? Everybody has a different
Yeah.
shit town. And
I
mine
call
was
it a shit.
divorce.
I said shit show, but what's your shit town?
Divorce and young
Mm,
children
me too.
um, and
Me too.
some people it's cancer and I can't relate to that, but I can relate to my shit town, and we've all
Mhm.
been there for different reasons. And clutter, I think there was one post about it, is often comes out of a chaotic situation. So
Mhm.
for you, maybe it was also when you merged families and all this stuff came in and you were in a place where you didn't want to offend and everything's great, and then now you want to deal with it, and you know it's hard to change gears to say, well, I wanted you to have that now, but I don't really want you to have it now. And but it usually comes out of a chaotic situation, losing a parent, a cancer, a divorce, a car accident, health, COVID, right? And
Mm.
so when you are overwhelmed, which most people are, I say start small. I know, I've got these how-to guides and they say, and I say take everything out, take everything out. And there really is something in that too that I'd like to speak to, especially about the closet, taking
So
things out.
can we do that? Can we segue to, because I want to ask you about some personal stuff too, but this
Sure.
just feels like a natural segue. So I know when I ripped apart my drawer that took me 2 hours, and I told you, and you said that's funny. And then I did my spices and
Yeah.
I bought all new spice jars and labels. By the way, everybody, you can get that from your LinkedIn bio or go to Megan's website. And there's an amazing spot on Amazon that honestly, I could do my whole house just from your
Well,
Amazon site.
yeah,
But
and the reason why I have that is because you do need training wheels of where to go. The last thing I
right.
want people to do, because it's the first thing everybody wants to do, is okay, when I'm over there, I'm just going to go to the store and I'm just going to go buy. Well, you
Mhm.
can't buy the things until you know what you need. So that's why I
What's
have the stores,
I
right?
love that. And I know I think, which is great, and it was a first step for me. What it did was it stimulated it in my brain that I want to keep going, but I didn't do it right. So what is the first step?
The first step is decluttering. You cannot clean, you cannot tidy, you cannot organize until you declutter.
How
So
do you do
that's
that?
why that's why I said to my cousin, there's nothing you can do before we come, because
Mm,
in her case, we need to help declutter. She had a flood and there was some complications. So
mm.
we need to help her declutter, because things just got put in all sorts of places. And often you're so excited about the baby coming, you don't declutter your university days. And then you're so happy about your kids getting married, you don't declutter the baby stage. And then you're happy about this and you don't, and then you're like, your house is full because you haven't addressed the past to welcome the future. That's what you're saying. But um,
Yes,
I
exactly.
say, I say, don't go out shopping first. That's why I like shopping online. That's why I have my Amazon store. It comes to the door. You don't need to go out, because guess what? You're going to get distracted, and then you're going to see Starbucks, and then you're going to see a friend, and then you're going to go for a walk, and then it'll turn into wine. And then you won't do what you're supposed to do. So stay in the room that you're organizing. Start by decluttering. And
Pull it all out.
if you are the person that can pull out everything from your closet, I say pull it all out of your closet.
Wow.
A kitchen's a big one. Get a friend. We can talk about my how-to guides, because every single step is in there, about 44 pages of every step, so that you do it successfully, down to opening the curtains, turning on music. Like everything that I do when I walk into a house is in those guides, because I don't want you to fail, because then I look like I didn't help you, right? So
Where are those how-to guides?
the how-to guides are on my website, but there's also a link in my bio that takes you to the store and takes you, whether it's an American, a Canadian store, or to the how-to guides. And I'm
Okay.
getting those more how-to guides. I want to have a how-to guide on every room, because the message is the same about how to do it, but then there's different tools that you use. And that's 3 pages of the guide is these are the things that I like to use for these type of cupboards and these type of drawers. And if you have this, then use this. So that's the cheat there of saving you the time of buying the wrong things.
Okay.
And that goes for anything, right? Like if I decide to paint my house, I want an expert to tell me what the best paint is and what, I don't want to experiment and guess. So that's why I have that. But I would say if you're super overwhelmed, start small. But if you're doing a drawer, nightside table, take everything out, because your container or the drawer will be the bad guy when you go to put it back to tell you these are your limits. And you can't overfill it, and you start with the most important things. The rest you have to deal with. And that's likely the layer of clutter that can go. Does that make sense?
That's good.
Like,
So where's this idea that people really feel like it's just, never mind that it's daunting, that it's going, in terms of how much time it's going to take, it's expensive. Why do people feel like this is expensive? This is going to, it's too expensive. I can't organize. I'm just going to leave it the way it is.
so I'd say that's someone standing in their own way. That's someone who's letting the fear win, who says that it's never going to stay organized. Well, if you think that, guess what? It will never stay organized, because you've already sent that message out that it's not going to work. So it works. I've been doing it for 12 years. When the systems are set up the right way, it works. And often, if we were doing Sarah's house in Guelph, as a bit of a marketing kind of, collab. And we started in the closet, even though she didn't. We took everything out, because then the physical and the emotional and the mental energy changes, because that every single thing that you put back in is something that has purpose and that is going to serve you and make you happy. Whereas if you just do 70%, you don't really know what's in there. And then your brain is still doing that duration path outcome. And
But
it's
how
almost even worse.
What's worse?
When you don't do it all the way thoroughly, as your brain then is trying to solve a problem, the same problem, but then it's even mad that you started the problem, and then it becomes the story about the story about the story. And so when you just do the whole thing, bring a friend, bring someone who's non-judgmental, get them to help you. It's often nice to have someone to bounce that permission off of. What do you think? Should I throw this away? When you're saying that to yourself, your self voice is not going to say, yeah, throw it away, Megan, because your self voice is where the problem got created in the first place. Does that make sense?
It does. I had when we did blend our family, and we ended up renovating my original house. Now it's our big blended family house. We moved back in. My sister came with all of these gadgets and her label maker.
Yeah.
And she started labeling, like, literally.
Don't offend the maker. I need to stop you before you offend the label maker. But
I'm not. She started. All the kids. We 5 kids between us, and each kid had their own, like, cubby and the mud room and all their stuff. And they still. That's where it goes.
Yeah, because she set up the system. Yeah,
she created a town for each child.
Yes, she defined the zone, and she set up the town and set up the category. So,
which is great.
And it's there's a post about it. Every post I do, I put a lot of thought into it. I don't kind of want fluff, but there's one that's some people get and some people don't, and it's that you don't lose your car. And why don't you lose your car? It's because it's in the garage. Well, duh, like everybody puts their car in the garage. That's sort of what you do there. But if you really think about it, if you had a place for everything like that, you likely wouldn't lose much. That's the obvious one, that the car goes in the garage. But the same is true for anything. It's just the obvious one.
But I would stop you and tell you that most people don't use their garage for their cars. They use it for storage and for bikes and for all their hockey and rollerblade equipment and their sports stuff and skis. And I mean, I would say probably most Canadian families would say they have too much stuff, and they have to put it in. If they are lucky enough to have a garage, they're using it for storage.
And it's okay. There's ways too. Then you get slat wall and you hang it on the walls so that you can get your garage in. But it's true that everybody's kind of got that room where the stuff just goes into to hide it, and that's fine. Like I do it too. I'm not saying I'm not saying you are bad, people are bad. We just do it. So the solution is we need to understand it. We need awareness so that we just don't do it so deeply that it affects our lives and those people in our homes around us.
So here's my thing. I have tried numerous times to organize a pantry, um, a fridge, labeled, bought containers. I take cookies out of a cookie box and put them in the cookie jar. I really try. And it all goes to hell. My kids, they're like, they just don't, there's too many of them. They don't adhere to the system. They don't care. They don't care if the chips go on the second shelf and the cookies go on the third shelf. They just, nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
So it
And
affect it. I'm like, I really have given up. I'm like, let them go in the pantry and do whatever. It drives me
so
nuts.
nothing stays forever. I'm going to say that. You clean your house. Does it say clean forever? No, you have to
No, like 2 hours.
it. Yeah. So that's, yeah. But you know, you don't have time to be reorganizing the pantry every 2 hours.
Oh, I
But
would if I could. I swear I would if I could.
I
I would.
certainly have to reset my pantry a lot. And
Oh, you
yeah,
do? Okay.
teens are problematic. And I think that if we understand why they're doing it a little bit and talk to them, at least then you are showing your teens respect and kindness for their home and for themselves. Even if it isn't successful, it's landing somewhere. Um, it's landing somewhere so that when they have their own homes, you know, they're going to have to navigate between, because there's a lot of people who just say, I'm not doing anything because my mother was such a perfectionist and wouldn't let us hang anything on the Christmas tree and everything had to be perfect. So I'm rebelling and I don't care where anything is. But I don't think that's always that healthy either. So
No,
you just need
no,
to
that's not
understand
good.
why. And people aren't perfect. And so again, it's progress, not perfection. And I think that you got to try. Like I said, you can't just, you know,
Can't
throw it
throw your
all.
hands up and say, you know what,
No,
I've done this a
it's
couple
life.
of times. So this is my question to you. I know you've got two kids, two dogs. You have a busy house also, right?
Yeah,
And
thankfully nobody's barking here. I thought for sure somebody
same with
joining me on the
me.
conversation.
Same. I'm not hearing my dog barking, which is great. Um, I was looking through your Instagram account and I saw that you had a Barbie drawer as a child
Mhm.
and it was already labeled. And
Yeah,
so you were always an organized child, but that you also come from a blended home where there was a lot of people in your house.
right.
So how did that affect you? How did you stay organized?
So my mother, there was a post too of her answering a question that somebody asked is, was I an organized child? And she'll say, I was not an organized child. I was, I was a messy child. I liked to fill out forms and I liked to label things and I liked micro managing things. And if you gave me a task, I would do it. So I've always been motivated and driven, but I have ADHD and I have overcome it slightly or managed it with being organized because I have to be or I get very anxious. So I have to have systems set up like socks downstairs in the mudroom for when the kids go to school because I'm always conscious and tight on time. And if I get thrown off, then I get overwhelmed and then it spills into my whole day. So without some of those systems, I I need that support for myself as well. And I
So
deserve it. So I set it up.
you talk about systems about routines before bed and routines in the morning. Is that something that you obviously you do that for yourself? So you talk to your clients about that as well?
Not, I mean, if it comes up, I do, but
Oh,
I
okay.
do believe that, you know, I meditate every day. I practice yoga nidra, and that
Hmm.
certainly is my biggest ADHD um, softener. Uh, it just gives me perspective, but my days start at night and my tomorrow starts, it'll start tonight when I go to bed. Because if I don't go to bed at the right time and, you know, turn devices down, then it affects my next day. So routine in the sense of looking after yourself, I think is important. Again, it's just about, to me, it's about neuroscience and what's important. getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning, and getting your systems, getting your circadian rhythm going. And that all is about routine, because essentially our brains are lazy. Like, they want to offload the easy to us, like breathing and walking. So they want systems, just help so that the brain doesn't have to do as much work in the background. And routine to me is that as well.
And also with ADHD, I mean, ADHD is also about hyper focusing too, right?
I often have to be pulled away from a task because I could
Right.
work at a client's house for 24 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have trouble getting motivated. I just get overstimulated, and
Mm-hmm.
then I get somewhat cranky. So I need to practice my nidra every day, and separate. That's a whole other conversation, but I separate myself from my thoughts so that I know that I am not those thoughts. I am not those negative thoughts if they did come up, and I have a right, I have an obligation, and I have the right to not believe those thoughts. Right. So routine to me is important. Systems are important in the home, I think, for a lot of people. And again, it's not about perfection. It's just about progress and taking out as much that comes in. The clutter is the number one thing. People want to, oh, I need to get organized. And I would challenge people to change that word from organized to, I need to declutter. And then
I'm
we'll
so
talk
excited.
about organization.
You have no idea how excited I am. This actually excites me, Megan. I am excited. I am going to declutter the shit out of my house. I'm so excited. This is like, people talk about a spring clean. This is going to be like epic clean. I'm taking stuff out. I can't even. And if you walked into my house and you opened up cupboards, it's not you, but other people would walk in and say, your house is organized. It's fine. It's great. What are you talking about? It's color coded. It's labeled. No way, not for me.
And
right?
that's okay. Everybody has different styles too.
Exactly.
And that's important, is sometimes there's certain websites out there that and companies I'm not super keen on that set those expectations that it has to be perfect. And if a client is an artist, actually I'm doing Jan Arden's house tomorrow.
Just going to ask you about this. Another segue. Okay.
Yeah. And so for artists, usually I can find out pretty quickly, because I've been doing it for a while, that I don't really need them to take a test or answer questions. I can figure out just in the conversation. But there is a lot of artists who, and other people who won't hang the coat up if there's doors and they have to open the doors. The coat's just going to go on the floor outside of the door. And it's not about an arts thing. It's just about style, or sorry, artistic. It's about style. So for that client, you take the doors off and you put hooks. Like, it just is never going to happen. So doors, like if you had a bifold door on a closet.
No, I get it. I'm just trying to figure out, like, why? What is
different people. And so for that client, as much as I say, hang up your coat, put it in the closet, it's just not going to happen. So for that client, they're better off. And if aesthetics isn't important to that person, take off the doors, remove the doors, and put hooks all in the closet. Make it easy for yourself, because not everybody's style is the same. Now, that wouldn't fly on some fancy websites or in a book, but it works for you. So it's got to work for you. My style isn't going to work necessarily in your house and in the next person's house. So it's very important for me to understand, like for Jan, for instance, tomorrow, she's just super, super creative. So her spices probably would never stay in alphabetical order. And she told me that. So that's not important to her. So I need to extract what's important for her, so she's a great chef and she loves to cook. So I need to find out what's going to help her to enjoy that space. Because right now, she's got all her mother's stuff in there, right? And
I saw. She's open about it. And I did see on your Instagram that you're at Jan Arden's house, and that is going to be amazing. I know that you've been to other famous people's homes, and then you have plans to go to other famous people's homes. And I say that because I'm not name dropping, but I love that about your business, because we are all human. We all have homes. We all have clutter. Doesn't matter how famous you are. We all have something, right?
And that's exactly why I do it. And that's why I admire those people who allow me. I admire a lot of people, but I really admire, the Jillian Harris and the Sarah Landry and those girls, women, Jan, who are letting me expose their vulnerability, because guess what? We all have it. You could come into my house, and I say that to my clients all the time. You could come into my house on any given day and we'd have a pretty good chuckle, right? We're not robots, and it's not about perfection, but it's about the science behind it. It's about permission to understand it, and it's about awareness, and it's about effort and fear. And I mean, there's so many things, but it's not necessarily about the organizing, although that's fun and before and afters are good to look at. So,
Okay, you have to tell me, you had dinner with Steven Tyler?
well, I went to a gala, and
Okay,
I'm not really afraid of much, but I'm just not afraid of much. I'll go up to whoever in the room, because
good for
life's
you.
hard not to. But I just
Right.
went up and we started chatting, and I'm big into music. And so we ended up just sitting down, and maybe it's because no one else was going up to him and talking to him, but we just sat down and talked for an hour or two, and it was really
Oh my God, you spoke to him for an hour?
long time. And I think that after a while, people maybe just thought that then people didn't interrupt because it was a good conversation. But yeah, really, I'd love to get to his house in Malibu, but
Okay, well, I was thinking that too. I've
yeah.
seen him interviewed 100 times. He's unbelievable. But is he sexy in real life? Is he cute?
Well, I love that bohemian, like, come
So do
on,
I. That's why I'm
the
asking.
bad
I
boy,
think he's the
Johnny
hottest.
Depp. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness. Yeah. But
totally.
yeah, but
Totally.
but that's why I'd love to share the word with everybody. And that's why I started my Instagram account. I only started it, about a year ago, but I did it to spread awareness. And so there's nothing that brings me more joy than when someone shares one of my posts and tells a friend, or, then that friend gets helped. And, we're all in this together. And I just think it's one small glimpse into how we can improve our lives as a community and a team. But doing someone's house who's famous is or who's popular in on social media just draws attention to it in a faster way. And it shows that everybody's normal.
Yeah,
Right?
it's normal. It normalizes it, right?
Yeah.
So can we talk about your Instagram page and your website? Because I want to draw everybody there.
Sure.
Great first steps. So what is your Instagram page? Tell everybody about it.
So it's at Go Simplified.
Go
And
Simplified. Okay.
yeah, Go Simplified, because my last name is Go Lightly. And so Simplified is the company, but it's the @ Go Simplified, because it's sort of a play on my last name. And the company is called Simplified, and my website is Go-Simplified. And I'm going to be getting some courses on there soon for people who want to become organizers, to understand this stuff too, that it's just not about going out and buying all the containers.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
To understand their clients.
Yes.
The how-to guides are going to be coming out. My goal is to have one on it, for every room. And, just there's some good stuff, I think, in the post that we put a lot of thought.
There's amazing stuff. You're being humble again. There's amazing stuff in the post. It speaks volumes that you started your account a year ago. You have how many? 150,000 followers, something like that.
Yeah. And Sarah Landry and I were talking about this too, is I'm 52 soon, and you can do anything. Like, I just went on Instagram a couple years ago, right? And so you just have to not be fearful. And Sarah from Go Clean and Jillian and those girls were very helpful. Sarah Landry, I just asked, and I feel like if you don't ask, you don't learn. And so you need to be curious, and curious on my page as well, to learn how to get the help you need, get the support you need.
Well, this has been one of my favorite conversations.
Aww.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the DL and to speak openly and candidly about your life and about things that you see, and all the great work that you're doing, because you really are making a difference. I know you are.
Well, thank you.
And I know I'm going to get probably a flood of questions and DMs about this. I'm just going to direct them all to you.
Well, I've never missed a DM. I have answered every single DM I've had, to the chagrin of my boyfriend, I think. And I make time for my family, but I try to answer. I have answered everyone, and I'll do that for as long as I can, because that's why I'm here, right? I wouldn't be here without everyone who follows along.
Thank you, Megan. It was a joy to meet you. Thank you so much. Everybody go Simplified and check out Megan's amazing Instagram page. And I hope you've enjoyed on the DL. And Megan, I will be reaching out to you for sure.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.